Don't ever give the enemy even a tiny bit of space to work in your life. Give the devil absolutely zero room.
None.
Not 1 inch. It's not just some vague warning. It's an urgent, serious call to guard every corner of your heart and mind. The enemy is looking for that smallest crack, that one little opening where he can slip in and take root. And that root of bitterness. Oh, that's exactly what he's after. It's not just bitterness itself, but what bitterness does. It's like an open door inviting the enemy to settle right in. When you hold on to bitterness, you're basically handing over your life to the enemy. The enemy's nature is so much like a serpent. Quiet, sneaky, patient. The most characteristic thing about a serpent is its way of ambushing. It doesn't rush in blindly or attack head-on. Instead, it moves silently, carefully, waiting for the perfect moment. First, it positions itself where it can strike without being noticed. It hides along the paths where its prey walks, maybe lurking there for days or even weeks, patiently waiting for the vulnerable moment to strike. This is the same strategy the enemy uses in your life. He doesn't just attack right away. He infiltrates, gets a foothold, finds his way into your thoughts, your relationships, your heart, and then he waits for the perfect moment to do damage. Think about it. This is how the enemy operates in the spiritual realm and in real life. He moves quietly but purposefully, seeking those inroads where he can gain strength secretly. His rebellion didn't start on earth. It began in heaven in a place of holiness. He was an angel once, but pride twisted him and he rebelled. He positioned himself in the courts of God, gaining influence secretly until the right time came for him to act. And now he uses the same tactics against us. Look at Absalom, the son of David. He held bitterness in his heart toward his father and positioned himself strategically in the kingdom's courts. He didn't just rebel openly from the start. Instead, he stayed by the gates, listening to the complaints of the people, gathering strength in secret until he could strike. This is the same tactic the enemy uses. Patiently positioning himself, gaining influence where he can, and then striking when you least expect it. Or take the example of Hitler. He didn't just come to power by force or sudden violence. No, the Nazis initially lost support in elections, but Hitler maneuvered quietly, making deals with politicians and positioning himself carefully. He flattered President Hindenburg, bowed to him publicly, and gained emergency powers through what seemed like legitimate political processes. Once in position, he used those powers to crush opposition and take over completely. He spoke peace while secretly preparing for war. Just like the serpent hides while waiting to strike, that's the enemy's method. Deception, patience, strategy. Now here in today's world, we see similar patterns. Take what's happening in some public schools. New Jersey recently became the second state after California to require schools to indoctrinate children into certain agendas without giving parents the right to opt out or even be notified. That's being called progressive, but it's really just another way the enemy tries to get inroads into the minds of our children. It starts subtly, step by step, gaining acceptance little by little until it becomes the norm. And if we don't stand firm and speak up, those inroads will deepen. And before we know it, our children are being influenced away from God's truth. It's not about hatred or rejecting people. We are called to love everyone, pray for everyone, but that doesn't mean we agree to allow the indoctrination of children into sin. We have to protect our families and communities by speaking the truth even when it's hard or unpopular. The enemy uses fear to silence many pulpits, but we must rise and say no. This strategy of infiltration works everywhere. I've heard stories from churches where people come in, position themselves quietly, and then sow division, heresy, or immorality, destroying what was once healthy. Whether they mean to or not, the enemy uses these openings to attack from within. It's far more dangerous than attacks from outside. Because when the enemy controls the inside, he controls the heart and mind of the community. This is why the Bible warns so strongly not to give the enemy any room. Zero room. Not a little. Not some, but zero. Bitterness is the perfect opening for him because it eats away at your spirit and opens the door wide, but it's not the only opening. The enemy waits for any foothold. A bad habit, an ungodly attitude, a relationship that's not honoring God, an indulgence, a sin you haven't dealt with. He waits like a boa constrictor, crawling patiently through the forest, seeking that one entrance where he can coil and strike. What is the opening in your life? What's the place where you might be giving ground unknowingly? It could be an idol, a thing or person you place above God in your heart. It could be an attitude of unforgiveness, a wound you refuse to heal, jealousy, insecurity, gossip, or anything else that is not submitted to God. These are all doors the enemy uses to infiltrate your life. I remember a man who wanted to join a congregation we were part of. All he talked about were the wrongs done to him in past churches and ministries. He held bitterness and resentment, and that became his opening. We warned him, but bitterness kept him trapped, and eventually he destroyed his own path by holding on to that root of bitterness. It's a clear example of how the enemy works through these wounds. Pornography is another powerful tool the enemy uses. I've seen marriages completely destroyed by it. Once the enemy finds that one little thing, a website, an email that pretends to be from a friend but is really a trap, he uses it to get in and cause destruction. Don't give him that one little opening. No matter how small it seems, jealousy, insecurity, worry about what others think. These may seem like small things, but they are openings. Idolatry isn't always about physical statues. It can be anything you love or put before God. The enemy knows these vulnerabilities and uses them to paralyze you to keep you from fulfilling your God-given purpose. This is why we must be vigilant, always. Examining our hearts and lives. What are we holding on to that the enemy can use against us? What habits, thoughts, or relationships might be giving him an entrance? The enemy is always looking for that one thing, that foothold, that landing ground where he can operate from. Even in war, armies look for landing grounds to invade. During World War II, the Allies had to secure Normandy to stop Hitler's advance. The enemy uses the same principle spiritually. One little foothold, and then they operate from there. So we must guard our hearts fiercely. Identify those places in your life that are vulnerable and close them off. Deal with bitterness, jealousy, gossip, immorality, ungodly attachments. Submit everything to God. Put God first in your heart and mind so there's no room left for the enemy to creep in. Remember, the enemy is clever. He waits patiently, moves quietly, and strikes at the moment of vulnerability. But God is more powerful. When we refuse to give any room to the enemy, when we guard our hearts and minds, we can overcome his schemes. It's a daily battle, but we are not helpless. We have the armor of God, truth, righteousness, peace, faith, salvation, and the Word of God. Use these to protect yourself and your family. Pray without ceasing. Speak the truth in love. Stand firm in your faith. The enemy may lurk, but he cannot win if you don't give him a place to stand. So don't let bitterness fester. Don't hold on to wounds or unforgiveness. Don't ignore those small sins or attitudes that seem harmless, but open the door to destruction. Be vigilant about your thoughts, your relationships, your habits. Seek God daily. Let His Word renew your mind and guard your heart. And finally, don't be afraid to speak out. There are many who are silent because they fear backlash or rejection, but silence allows the enemy to grow stronger. We must speak truth, protect the vulnerable, and encourage one another to stand strong. This message isn't just about avoiding danger. It's about living the victorious life God intends for us. It's about walking in freedom, joy, and peace. When you close every door to the enemy, you make room for God's blessings and power to fill your life. So today, ask yourself, where am I giving the enemy room? What root of bitterness or sin am I holding on to? What habits or relationships need to be surrendered to God? Take that step to close those doors now, and watch how God works in your life. Remember, the enemy waits, but you have the power to stop him. Don't give him any room. Zero room. Stand strong, stand firm, and live.